So, possibly from watching way too many episodes of Law and Order or way too many apartment tours on TikTok of New York City apartments, I found myself really wanting to build a basement apartment of like a brownstone in New York City. I always think it's so cool when the door to the apartment is like under the stairs for the main house in the basement apartments. So that's what I'm going for on this one. I also think maybe later I will build a few more brownstones next to it. So it'll be like a block of brownstones, which you see in like Brooklyn, maybe parts of Manhattan. I'm not sure. I spend more time in Brooklyn than I have in Manhattan. It did take me a little while to figure out the best way to build the basement apartment. And unfortunately, it still wasn't perfect for what I wanted because if it was ideal for me, I would be able to kind of have the levels halfway in between the earth. So it would only be like half a floor down the basement apartment, and some of the windows could be in the foundation. But since that's not really possible in The Sims 4, I did the best I could, which was just cut out some like window wells and sort of a patio area in the front so people could enter. I had also wanted the back porch of the first floor to be kind of over a patio for the basement, but unfortunately with the foundation that wasn't possible. So I ended up just creating a window well in the back and then a communal staircase in the back as well so people could kind of exit and enter as a second point of egress. In Boston, you needed 2 points of egress for each apartment, so there was normally stairs in the front and stairs in the back. I'm not sure this is the same for New York City, but I kind of like when there are two exits, and I wanted the basement to have access to the backyard as well. So that's why I added stairs in the back there. It did take me a minute to figure out the interior layout. Initially, I wasn't planning on making windows on the sides, but I realized I absolutely wanted that light to be able to make this comfortably a 2-bedroom apartment. I also realized I probably should have put the basement door and like the stairs and the door to the first floor on the other side that actually shared a wall instead of the side with the windows. But I was in way too deep at this point. So I ended up putting the bedrooms on the side where I added the window wells and then keeping the rest as the main space. I had been planning to make the kitchen the part in the back, but I realized the rest of the living area would be way too dark and it would kind of waste the light. So I ended up moving the bathroom up a little bit and then turning the front area into the kitchen and dining area, and the back part was going to be the living room, and then there was a little bit of a hallway in the middle as well. I did put in that table just to test, but I definitely was not going to keep those colors. I was hoping to fit a 6-person table, but that just was too cramped for the space, so I decided a 4-person table for a 2-bedroom apartment was probably fine. Then once I started doing the kitchen, I didn't feel like replacing the furniture, so I was putting in like final furniture by that point. For New York City, this apartment kitchen would be absolutely huge, which I actually think makes sense because when I was looking at apartments in Boston at least, and a lot of what I see on tours on TikTok, the basement apartments tend to have a larger size and a lot less light. So you lose the light, but you do gain space. And it was the same for this one as well. I did end up replacing the table right here and making it glass just to try and lighten up the space a bit. Watching it back, I probably could have lightened up the counters, but I do love those black counters so much from Life and Death, so I went and I used those anyway. In the front area, I had that really awkward space that I wasn't sure what to do with, so I decided to go for an entry hall and kind of like a drop zone. I was debating whether I wanted to put like a little office area there, but to me, having an office would have like ruined the flow of the entryway and also just like not been an ideal spot to work if you were working there. Obviously, this is a Sims and they don't care, but logistically, I didn't think it made sense, so I added a different like get ready / drop zone area. And then I did add a closet in the entry hall as well because it's New York City and you're going to need a place to put all of your coats over the winter and kind of hang stuff up. So I made sure there was plenty of storage for coats and shoes in this entry hall so it would kind of actually function as an entry hall. I decided not to do a budget for this build because I just wanted to build what I wanted to build, to be honest. But I did try and make sure I decorated to the max because sometimes by the time I decorate, I'm just like out of energy for the build and I don't decorate. But I decided if I was going with no budget, I was going balls to the wall with my decorations. I also added in a laundry because that would be really helpful if you're actually living in an apartment in New York City. But I hate using laundry in game because those washing machines break even more frequently than they break in real life. And it's basically impossible to keep up with your household's laundry because they change clothes like 7 freaking times a day. But since I was going for realism in this build, I decided I wanted this to be a nice apartment to live in, and having in unit laundry definitely makes a huge difference. So, these lucky two Sims do get some in unit laundry. I decided I was going to go for kind of like some young adults, maybe two girls living together, either towards the end of university or beginning of their professional life. I also wanted it to look a little bit older, which is why I use like darker wood tones for the windows and stuff, as well as put some built-ins around the fireplace. I honestly don't know if you're allowed to have fireplaces in basement apartments. I assume yes, but honestly not sure. I do personally love the built-in look and fireplaces as well, but I know it's not the most modern look, so that's why I decided it would make the apartment look a little bit older. So it was a place that's theoretically a little more affordable to someone who's just starting out in the city. I wanted something in that corner, and I decided since I already put a pet bowl in the kitchen, I would do a little like pet play area and then a jukebox, which for me, I almost never use a jukebox. So I thought it would be a cool way to incorporate something I don't normally use and get a radio. I also was struggling with the decorations in terms of like picture frames and stuff because I wasn't 100% sure what the vibe was. At first, I went like movie posters and I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. So I went a little more like art and random stuff on the walls, and I liked that a lot better. Again, normally I do not put too many paintings on the walls or anything like that when I'm building in most of my builds, but I filled up every extra space with pictures that I could on this one. I also did one of my favorite like painting techniques, which is to make all the exterior walls out of brick and then the interior ones be like painted drywall looking stuff, because I just love the look of exposed brick, especially if you're trying to build a city apartment. But I also ended up deciding that the painted part was like a bit too much painted, so I went back in a few areas and added some more like painted exposed brick to make it look a little bit more like that city charm that I really like. And I did tile the kitchen because I also love a tiled kitchen. So that's what I did in terms of painting for most of the place. I also filled in the window wells and put wood on the floor. The window wells I initially had thought grass, but then I decided brick made more sense because no one's going to water that grass and it would get real funky by the windows. So I did brick in the window wells in the patio and then wood throughout most of the rest of the apartment, except for the bathroom and the kitchen, which got a dark tile. I do realize I'm using a lot of dark tiles for a already dark apartment, but honestly, I kind of like the look, so I'm not too mad about that. I also added in carpets wherever I could because if you've ever lived somewhere where it gets cold, the floors get incredibly cold in the winter, so you kind of want to carpet as much as possible. And I love a good hallway runner carpet as well as a living room carpet. It's such a fun way to add color. I figured I would do the same in the build as well. I almost never put decorations in my bathroom, but I wanted this to look more lived in. So I ended up like alt placing something, which is one of my least favorite activities to do. But I managed to figure it out this time. And I also added a few things to the wall because if you're living in a city, you're using your wall space. Like every spot of your wall is either decoration or hanging something up because you don't have a lot of closets. This apartment has 0 built-in closets, though to be fair, making built-in closets in The Sims is not fun. But yeah, I was using all of the wall space and trying to make it look like someone would actually live there. And then onto the first bedroom, I decided this girl was going to be an artist. So I gave her a desk to do her work because I was still thinking university student, but I also gave her some other stuff to do as well, which was an easel. I love some of these art decorations, like random stuff, like the piles of painting, but they are huge. So it really took up a lot more space than I expected, and I was only able to fit a stool and a mirror next to it, even though I was kind of hoping to have like a tiny table where someone might store paints. That was not in the cards. I also struggled a lot with the carpet in this area because nothing was quite matching the bed the way I wanted it to, even though I love that life and death carpet. So I selected the part that was like closest to the colors I used in the room. And then once I started on the second room, immediately decided that I would rather the carpet be in that room. So I moved it over to the second room instead and ended up with a more colorful carpet for the first room. In the second room, I wasn't 100% sure the vibes I wanted for the second room and like what type of sim I wanted to live there. So I ended up doing a little bit of a basic room for someone who does like social media and maybe writing at the desk. Doing that double glass desk is my favorite way to incorporate the video station and a desk, because I'm so mad that you can't make videos on your laptop and you need to have that huge video making station, because I love when my Sims make videos, but it's so hard to incorporate that giant video editing station in. And if that video editing station also functioned as a computer, I would be a lot happier, because like, yeah, it's a big thing to fit in, but at least it's also the computer. But no, you also need a separate computer to do all the computer tasks. And to me, it's absolutely ridiculous, because most people edit on their laptop or desktop these days. So having a whole setup like that is unnecessary for like the casual sim fluencers that I sometimes play as, like the ones who just record on their phone, or like the drones. They should just be able to upload easily from a computer, but nope, I have to get that giant machine in. At the end, I was just adding a little bit more decorations to the walls. My favorite part was doing this gallery wall in the artist's room, because I was like, oh, of course she's gonna have all her paintings and stuff on the wall, and I thought it looked so cool. And then I just added a few more final details here and there, like a light I had missed and some lights outside as well. And then I wanted to decorate the outside patio just a tiny bit. This is like borderline accessible by the general public, because it's just down a flight of stairs from the street, but I still kept a few things in there. I did decide I wanted them to have like a modicum of privacy down there, so I did end up adding a front gate to the stairs. I'm also pretty sure I've seen gates in real life, so I think this is pretty realistic. And then the last thing I did for finishing this build was just to kind of get started on what the top part would look like, because I do want to finish that eventually. So I wanted to kind of give a little bit of an idea of what the full building would look like. So now let's get a little tour of the apartment itself. Down there, you go down the stairs and you first arrive in the patio area, which is just a little seating area, a bike, and a planter. Then you have the entry hall closet area and a secondary drop zone with a mirror. Continuing back, you have the dining area, which I think is a pretty good space for New York City. And you continue on to the absolutely massive kitchen. Like, I've never seen that much counter space unless it's $1 million mansion in New York City. Continuing on, you have a very average sized bathroom for the city. Nothing too special, but nothing too broken down either. I love how cute this living room turned out with the built-ins, but yeah, it's pretty average for a living room. I did incorporate a chess table, which normally I don't put, but I think it's another way for your Sims to have a fun activity. And then I also did the 2 bedrooms, the first purple one for an influencer, and the more colorful pink and turquoise one for an artist. Thank you for watching. If you have any ideas for future builds, I would absolutely love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this, please feel free to join me, and I would love to have you.